What's going on, guys? Apathettic here with all your tips, recommendations, and everything in between. And in today's video, we are discussing the Warlock Exotic that makes Stasis even more OP and is easily one of the most slept on exotics in the Crucible. Often when choosing Warlock Exotics for PvP, we often gravitate towards your mainstays like Ophidian Aspects, Transversive Steps, and Karnstein Armlets, and all with good reason. All these exotics provide boosts to certain aspects of our game or build that make them valuable. But what if I told you that you could gain extra 3 tiers of energy regen on your abilities with one exotic, and it will allow you to focus more on dumping stats into things like intellect and recovery? This exotic is none other than the Eye of Another World, and when paired with Stasis, it completely eliminates the only downside to running Stasis, which was the ability regen. I'm going to cover how this exotic affects your cooldowns, the sweet spot you should be aiming for on your stats with this exotic, and how you can use this exotic to make your Stasis Warlock even more OP. But before that, I also have a Discord for people looking to team up, discuss builds, or ask questions, so consider joining the Discord using the link below if you're looking to connect with some like-minded Destiny players. With that, let's get into it. Getting into the exotic Eye of Another World has the exotic perk Cerebral Uplink. Highlights priority targets and improves the regeneration speed of your grenade, melee, and rift abilities. Now, on the surface, this perk sounds very underwhelming, and in real time can be very hard to track how effective this exotic is at actually regenning your abilities. But I'm here to tell you guys, I tested melee and grenade regen with and without this exotic, and it is substantial. The big takeaway you're going to be looking at is this exotic gives you an additional 3 tiers, sometimes more, of ability regen when running this exotic. So as an example, for tier 1 grenade regen on Stasis, normally you're looking at 2 minutes and 14 seconds. When you equip Eye of Another World, you're looking at 1 minute and 23 seconds, or 51 seconds faster than normal. So we are making up about 5 tiers of energy right there when we're running tier 1 grenade regen, and running Eye of Another World gives us similar grenade regen to tier 6 without this exotic. With melee, you're looking at something similar. So if we're running tier 1 melee regen with Eye of Another World, you're looking at 112 when normally it'd be 158, so 46 seconds faster than normal. To hit a similar level of regen without Eye of Another World, you'd have to run tier 5 melee, which would give you 1 minute and 16. So that's still slower than tier 1 melee regen with Eye of Another World. So to say that 46 second faster cooldown when you're looking at tier 1 is substantial would be an understatement. This exotic is basically going to allow you to really run much lower grenade regen and melee regen and focus on putting those stats in other places, but still allowing us to have very low ability cooldown. And the thing is about Stasis is naturally it has a higher ability regen, and running certain fragments negatively impacts your stats. But with Eye of Another World, we can basically erase all those downsides of Stasis, making it even more OP. And so now I'm going to talk about what I would recommend, what is going to be the sweet spot in terms of what stats you're going to be looking for when you're running this exotic, and then how to make the most of it with Stasis. Talking about your stat distribution and what you really should aim for when running Eye of Another World. For me, I found that the sweet spot is going to be typically between 4 and 5 energy for discipline and strength. That's going to take us to 1 minute 13 regen on tier 4 when normally it's 150. And that's going to bring us to 54 second melee regen versus 116 on strength. So already giving us very low cooldown, so you're looking at 1 minute 13 or less on both these abilities. And so the other benefit of running very low discipline and strength is you can run higher intellect. Now I have tier 6, and if I had better stat rolls, I would try to get this as high as possible. And of course, running higher recovery. As you can see, our class ability cooldown is 41 seconds. This exotic also impacts that cooldown as well, so it's going to be even lower than 41 seconds. I think it's closer to like 37, 38 seconds. So not a huge jump because there is a diminishing returns when running this exotic, but it still is even faster, which makes it just even more valuable to run that high recovery in general. And then the other thing I would recommend on top of kind of landing in this 4 to 5 energy range for your abilities is running double outreach. So this is going to reduce the melee cooldown when using your class ability, tying into our already going to be insanely low rift cooldown. Now we're using this to get our melee back even faster. So if I had the ability, I would run even lower strength probably, because I'm going to be counting on popping my rift, using my rift frequently, and that's going to make that ability cooldown even lower. So let's tie it all together on Stasis and how you should use this exotic and what fragments you should be running to really maximize its efficiency. So here you'll see for the abilities, I run Empowering Rift. So I pair that with my Stern for my 120 so I can 2-tap as often as possible. And this is going to allow me to be constantly popping my Rift, which is going to help my melee cooldown because I'm using that double outreach mod. And then also, again, like I said, 2-tap. And because my cooldown is so low, I'm be getting this back very frequently. And then the name of the game here is going to be all about freezing as many opponents as possible. So we're going to be running Penumbral Blast as that's our only option. Also a very powerful melee ability. We're going to be getting it back very frequently. And then Cold Snap. Now, arguably Dustfield is the better grenade, but I run Cold Snap here because it's not about, you know, necessarily killing that enemy exactly. It's about getting the freeze and proccing the damage boost, which we'll get into in a second. Then I run Whisper of Durance. This just gives me a little bit extra strength to help that melee cooldown and also offset Whisper of Hedrons, which we'll talk about in a second. I also run Whisper of Fissures, so that way when I do freeze someone, it gives me a better chance of getting those collateral kills when I shatter an enemy. And then I have Whisper of Hedrons. This gives me the -10 strength, but we're kind of offsetting that with Whisper of Durance. And this is huge because it gives you that close to 25% damage boost when freezing targets, allowing us when we're using those 120s to 2-tap our enemies to kill them even faster when they're frozen, because with these two abilities, the freeze duration is not very long, so we need to be able to kill them as quickly as possible when using Penumbral Blast and Cold Snap. So with Whisper of Hedrons, it's going to allow us to kill them as fast as possible. Again, just increase our damage output. And then this allows us to run Whisper of Bonds. And Whisper of Bonds is amazing because when you defeat frozen targets with weapons, it grants you super energy. But there's a huge downside. You get -10 intellect and -10 discipline. But with I Have Another World, we're able to run the lower discipline and take that hit because our energy regen is going to be so much higher, up to 3 tiers or more in some cases higher with I Have Another World. So it easily erases that -10 discipline that we were facing. And then with the -10 intellect, that's also no biggie now because we can take those stats we would normally invest in discipline or strength and funnel them into intellect, easily overcoming that -10 intellect. The other thing is now we're running higher intellect because we're overcoming that -10, but we're going to be constantly defeating frozen targets with weapons because we're going to be getting our grenade and melee back faster. So we're getting our Penumbral Blast back quicker. We're getting our Cold Snap back quicker, getting those freezes and hopefully finishing those kills. And that's going to make our super comeback even faster. And so this all ties together to create great synergy with I Have Another World. So you can really abuse some of these fragments because you can easily overcome the decreased energy regen or the negative impacts of these fragments with this exotic. And so then we're constantly getting freezes, we're constantly getting those kills and getting those damage boosts, and then we're constantly getting tons of super energy from getting those kills with Whisper of Bonds. And this allows you to get your super basically before anyone every single game, as long as you're being efficient with those freezes. And with Stasis, it's hard not to be. So make sure you guys are running Whisper of Bonds because this really tops off this build that really maximize our super regen. Again, if you can run higher intellect here, it's going to only be even better. So overall, guys, I think I Have Another World is by far the best exotic you could run for Stasis. It erases all the pain points of the fragments, of the cooldowns on this subclass in general, and it really allows you to abuse those freezing abilities and be the first one to also get your super as quickly as possible. There's almost zero downsides. Obviously, you may miss the movement of transversive steps or the handling that you get from Ophidians, but the amount of regen you gain from I Have Another World and how you can funnel those stats elsewhere to really optimize your efficiency is truly next level. But let me know what you guys think of this exotic after you try it out and how much you notice the ability regen. With that, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe as they're all free ways to support me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.